Welcome to the MotUS Edge, where we celebrate business, primarily youth sports facility management, leadership, and motivation. Co-hosted by Stacey Rowe, Cole Stott, Kevin Brubaker, and Casey Jones. We are here to fill your cup with knowledge, laughter, affirmations, and comfort knowing that you're not alone. You can and will succeed with the MotUS Edge.
Hello and welcome to the MotUS Edge. I'm Stacey Rowe, here as always with Kevin Brubaker, Cole Stott, and Casey Jones. Our amazing special guest today is Bri Zborowski. I think I said that properly this time. I don't know. Bri, did I get it right?
Good.
Okay, great. Awesome. So Bri, you are with Apolla Performance Socks. Is that correct?
I am, very proudly.
And you were on Shark Tank with your Apolla Performance Socks, yes?
Yeah, 2 years ago now it aired. So our life changed 2 years ago for sure.
Yeah, so tell us about that. So you had been at, like, you started your business and then were on Shark Tank.
We've been at this. It's 10 years this year. We were in R&D for the first 2.5 years, I think it was. And then we went to live sales in 2016 and we were exclusively in the dance market. That was sort of our background. That's where all of our connections were. Dance in and of itself, the injury rate for dancers was just through the roof. Nobody was doing anything about it. And that was kind of the catalyst for us that started, Apolla, is we want to help and we can fix this and we want to positively affect the conversation when it comes to injury risk management. And so we were there until, and doing really well. Everything was growing really big and fast. And we really worked hard at it. And then the pandemic hit and everything arts and entertainment was wiped off the map. And that sort of forced us. Yeah, yes, I know, preach, right? You guys totally know about that. And it forced us to put our foot on the gas and accelerate our 5-year plan to get outside of dance. And we knew we could help so many other people, but as a small business, I think you have to pick and choose where you put your time, energy, and resources. And so we were really growing consciously and small, but we were making impactful decisions on growth. And that all went out the window and we had to pivot really hard and really fast. And one of the ways we did that was applying for Shark Tank. It was something that we've heard from day one, pretty much once a month since we started, that you guys need to do Shark Tank. You have an amazing story. You need to go on. And, we're like, yeah. You get to the point where you're like, yeah, we hear that all the time, maybe one day. And I'm lucky enough to be in business with my best friend, and my business partner is Casey Jones, also, ironically. And she called me one day and she said, I just applied for Shark Tank. And, every good business, they have, the unicorn, the positive, the optimism, the optimism is just ever flowing. And then you have the me, who is kind of the the fly in the ointment, to put it nicely, and a little more.
Funny. Bri, that's funny. For us, Casey Jones is the fly in the ointment, and it's opposite for you.
Yeah, it's opposite. And so it's not the name. That blows my theory. It's not the name. But so I think I said, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, we had so many things to worry about. And I was like, moving on, and we got the call a few weeks later that the process had started and we had been pushed through, and it became very real very quickly. And it was, very grateful for it, but it was a crazy time.
So the production of that show, once you're there on set, is it scripted at all, or is it pretty just straight organic and it is what you see?
Yeah, it is what you see. And they can edit you however they want, which is I think it causes the most anxiety for people that are on it. But it's a very long process. And almost to the, we had to adopt this as part of our life. We were working 2 full-time jobs. We were running the company and preparing for Shark Tank, and our spouses really, our lives were upended, but you can't tell anybody what's happening. Nobody knows. So you just look like this crazy person who has, fallen off the face of the earth. And, you probably look like you haven't slept in a while, and and you don't know if you're going to make it through until about 2 weeks before. Everything is a if come maybe. And it's not a sure bet the whole entire way through. And we really just made a conscious choice to prepare like we were going to be on the show. And so that is how we treated it.
So cool. How long is that process? I mean, is that a couple weeks?
Oh gosh, no, months. Like, it was, so we applied in February of 2020. And then we got, February of 2021, we got called from casting, I think at the end of March, beginning of April. And then you go through different stages of the process where at any point you could be knocked out. They're doing an insane amount of diligence on you and your company and your spouses and all the things, right? They really go through, and it's, I think, like 70-page applications on each, and it's extensive. And then from there, you get through or you don't, based on what they think, you can bring to the table. And keeping in mind, it is a reality show on TV, but it is absolutely a business pitch. And this is real money and real people. They don't know anything about you when you walk in the tank. The only thing that was scripted is, you have that opening 10 to 20, or I think it's like 20 to 30 second that, hi sharks. We prepared that. They didn't necessarily see that, but we prepared that. And that was choreographed, and we knew what we were going to say. And the rest is just whatever they throw at you when you're in there.
So if people want to watch it or Google it, or what episode is it, or how do they find it?
It's season 13, episode 18. Awesome. I think you can get it on Amazon Prime or Hulu, anywhere that they have Shark Tank, but it's season 13, episode 18. We aired. So to your point, Casey, to go back and answer, we applied in February. We filmed in September of 2021. So February to September. And then when you walk out, we didn't air until April 1st of 2022. So it was a little over a year from the time we applied to the time we aired.
Sounds like reality TV on steroids. Yeah. I mean, it is truly reality TV mixed with an honest to goodness business plan.
So, well, and you hope you are going to air, but they tell you, even us doing the deal that we did on the air, or, when we filmed our episode, and we want to know when it's going to air. And they're like, well, we don't know if you are, so we'll let you know. Wow. And you really just have to go through and keep everything running and going really well, and giving updates and hope that they want to take a chance and air your episode.
So you film an episode.
Yeah.
But you don't know if it's even going to be used.
Correct.
I just want to reiterate that. Like, that is what you said.
You have to hope. So when I say, we got the shot of a lifetime, I mean it. Like, I think statistically, there was just an article that came out that it's harder to get on Shark Tank than it is to get into Harvard. Wow. And so it is something that we're really proud of. It's this big thing that changed our life, but also consumed our life and took us away from our families and our kids. And, it was just a huge sacrifice all the way around for everybody involved. And so to come out the other side of that is just, we're really proud of it.
That's pretty awesome.
So what do you feel like, the experience after doing all of that, like, how did it change, for good or for bad, your business moving forward?
Yeah, it was, the exposure is just unbeatable. You can't, for us to reach that level, the amount of people that episode did on our own would have taken years or been virtually impossible. And so to have that platform and that exposure to get the message out about our product, and then to see the response that happened it was really the first time that we had seen a response that big from people that weren't dancers. And so we had been validated in the past by small segments of people, but to see that many people that didn't know anything about us and hadn't ever heard of us before want to genuinely try and get in line for 18 weeks. I mean, the volume was so massive that we did a year's worth of business in 24 hours. We did 2 years worth of business the month of April that we aired. And then we were out of product, and people still got in line and waited on 18-week back order for the next 10 or 11 months. So it was really frightening in the sense, you go into it going, how do I keep my business alive? And you come out of it and you're saying, how do I keep my business alive in a completely different way? Because you have all these people who have trusted you with their money, and they really want to try your product, and you get one chance to make a really good first impression. And, we're sitting here trying to figure out, how in the heck do we get these made? How do we get these made fast enough to keep these people waiting in line patiently and so kindly the way that they did. And we got through it. And I think that's the biggest thing is, as an entrepreneur, those challenges never stop, whether you're, just building your business, whether you go on Shark Tank, whether you have all the success in the world, there's challenges that come every step of the way. And I think we have a new confidence that you sort of feel like, okay, no matter how big it is, no matter how hard it is, we can get through this, and we have all the tools we need to figure this out. Right. So I think that was the biggest thing, is just the growth and, how it took our business from one level to another and having to adapt to all of those changes.
So I know really we met at the, it is incredible. It is incredible. And I know we met at the USASF conference. That's how I met you. And you had already known, Casey actually introduced us. You had already knew this Casey Jones. And so Casey was like, hey, I want you to come over here. I want you to check these out. And I put those socks on my feet, and literal tears almost started falling down my cheeks, because it was the first time that my feet had felt that good. That
was really special
in a couple of years. And I have several pairs of your socks now, and I actually wear them on our event weekends, because it's the only way I can make it through, like all the walking and standing up and all the things. And so tell us a little bit about the socks for the listeners that may not know. We just kind of jumped right in, like everybody in the world knows what an Apolla sock is.
Wait.
Kevin's holding up his finger. Yeah.
I'm curious. Yes, I want to hear that, but I would love to hear, you don't have to give the whole spiel, but what did you say in your 20 seconds as your intro? And maybe that leads into telling our audience what exactly you said.
Yeah. So we were, hi, I'm Casey. I'm Bri. We're the creators of Apolla Socks. No, we did that whole thing, but basically they are a premium compression sock. So a lot of people hear that and go, okay, I know compression socks, but they're not all created equal. It's very saturated. There's a lot of marketing that goes into it. Ours are unique in that they're giving those premium targeted compression zones throughout the entire foot, ankle, and calf. So we're lifting and stabilizing at the arch. We're giving knit and padding in the heels and balls of the feet, proven to reduce force. And we're giving stabilization at the ankle with graduated compression up the calf. What essentially that's doing, it's removing all the inflammation that causes aches, pain, swelling, and leads to the overuse injuries we see so much in cheer and other sports, right? But it's also improving circulation to help with the recovery process, so they can get back to what they love to do faster without all the pain and the injury, hopefully. So that is kind of what we do. What makes us different is where we put our compression. Normally you get a little at the arch or you get a little at the ankle. Ours is throughout the entire foot, ankle, and calf. And we're backed by science. So we're going to have all of these things backed up. We have independent studies showing they reduce force of impact. Every single style we have is approved by the American Podiatric Medical Association. They're antimicrobial, they're sustainable, they're moisture wicking, and then we're really proud that we make them 100% in the USA.
Nice.
I think it's pretty cool that, you mentioned early on, like being involved in the arts. I am very familiar with different types of compression socks and things like that. And everybody has pushed that towards, endurance athletes and climbing mountains and different things like that. And honestly, that's where I got my interest in it. But I think it's really cool that you guys sort of focused on dance to begin with and focused on the arts. And, I think we often definitely believe that cheer is a sport, but there is certainly an artistic side to it. And what we do is for 2.5 minutes. However, the training that we do is far greater than 2.5 minutes.
You got it. And that's the thing about dance, is that when we started in dance, we knew we were starting a conversation that was not being had in dance. We were essentially taking the dance world and flipping it on its head and doing something that had never been done before. And that took a lot of convincing people. It took a lot of education. As a startup, that is not an easy mountain to climb, but we were committed to it because we just had such a passion for the industry. It had our heart. Like, we grew up there and nobody was doing anything about it. And I think that was the biggest thing that we saw, is like, you have these giants, these sleeping giants who run the dance space. I mean, they make the footwear for the last 50 years, haven't had to change much because people they'll just keep rolling out the same SKUs over and over every year, calling it something else. Nobody's really doing anything to tackle this major problem that dancers are crippled for the rest of their life by these injuries. And we were like, we can do better than this. And so we took those people on, and they knocked us off, and they still are to this day are trying to figure out how we did it, right? And they did an okay job, but we were able to really create a brand awareness in that space, and in doing that, and a loyalty from our customers, because ours are not cheap. They're not the cheapest product out there. They are a premium product, but we guarantee them. So if you get a hole, message us, we'll replace it. We guarantee them 6 to 9 months, but they last years. So it's like, once people started trusting us, the conversation got a lot easier. And then we started getting feedback immediately of, well, my daughter's a cheerleader and my son does gymnastics, and, my kid does marching arts, and they're on the field for 14 hours on really uneven ground, and they're injured all the time and they hurt all the time. And we're like, we know this formula. We can do this formula. We did this in dance. And now it's just having the same conversation in other spaces. And it's really rewarding. I said this, we were at Winner's Choice in Foxwoods last weekend, and I said this to one of the parents I was talking to. It is so validating when you go to those events and have those conversations, and kids are literally falling into your booth with ankle injuries, and you're saying, here, put these on. And similar to you, Stacey, you see that light bulb moment happen where they go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Where, I'm buying 4 of them. And yeah, it's great that they're buying 4 of them, but it's even better that now we have a solution for this young athlete who maybe won't grow up and be 40 some years old, in chronic pain. Right.
Did you watch any of UDA College Nationals that was on a little while ago?
We were watching bits and pieces of it in between selling, but
several, I guess it was, it's been several weeks now, but, wow, the level of athleticism and just the elements that the dancers are doing. And you brought up, the pounding on the feet that people don't, like a ballerina, especially, like their feet are horrific, right? I mean, any dancer knows that they're these beautiful, creatures, right, above, like, that you see, but then their feet outside of those shoes are like the ugliest, most awful thing ever, because they're doing so much damage to their feet. And a friend of mine and I were talking about the competition and the dances and just how elevated. I mean, it's just elevated. Like, I watched a team that I thought was amazing, and they didn't even make it to finals. And then I watched a team that I thought, oh, surely they were the winner, and they weren't. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And they were doing backflips and aerials and, in bare feet on hard surfaces.
And to Casey's point, and what you guys were saying, that's a 2-minute routine. What you don't see is the hours and hours of repetitive nature of practicing those things over and over and over again. That really does the damage. And that's what we're trying to, we'll tell that we want you wearing them all the time. We want you wearing them for, rehearsal and practices and competition and recovery. But if you're going to pick one to start with, wear what you're going to wear in practice, because that's where all of it is happening, and all the inflammation is compounding, and, where they're putting in all the work.
So Bri, take us back to, I know you said you were, obviously have a dance background, but what was your dance journey?
I grew up in a studio. So my parents owned a business, a produce business. I grew up in Michigan. So in Detroit, they owned a first generation produce business. And that
question. Michigan or Michigan State?
I never joined this conversation. Probably. I don't care about college football. All right. I don't know. But probably if I had to pick to support my mom, Michigan.
Go blue. Let's go.
I'm more of we've got, the Red Wings, now the Lions, the Pistons. We're, big professional sports town over there. Yeah. Love hockey. But yeah, I think it's just, wait, what were we saying? What was the question? I went back.
Your dance journey. You grew up in Michigan.
I grew up dancing. Yeah. I started assisting, I started choreographing. And then I met I went to college, got my business degree, watched my parents building their business was always working down there on the weekends and slinging produce at the open market. And so you get to learn to deal with different types of people and all cultures and all the things. And I took my kids to a dance convention, which anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's a weekend where these teachers that come from LA or New York come to your town and they teach classes. And it's a great way to get training from people that are actually working in the business. And it's just another level up on your training, right? And you spend all weekend there. And I took a class from this guy who was touring with Cheyenne at the time. And he was like, who are you? Where did you come from? What are you doing? And why are you here and not out in the world doing this? Something stuck with me. I always had in the back of my head, the dream would be to move to LA and try to do this for real, and I kind of got my degree and started working in corporate real estate and had the big girl job and the salary and the benefits and all that. And life was really stable. I had my, dance job and I was busy and, thriving. Everything was great, but there was this what if in the back of my head. And I ended up going home after that conversation and telling my parents, I think I want to move to LA and I want to quit my job and I want to try. And they said, okay, let's do it. We'll support you. And I'm fortunate enough to have two parents that were, believed in me and wanted to support me in pursuing my dreams. And they helped me do that. And I moved out to LA, never having been there, never set foot there ever in my life. And next thing I know, I've got an apartment on the corner of Hollywood and La Brea by a block from Grauman's Chinese Theater and Hollywood Boulevard. And
nice.
I'm living it out. And that guy ended up becoming my husband. And so now we're married with, we met up. He didn't know I had moved there and we met up and we're friends for a while. And then it kind of just turned into more. And I like to say he changed my life. So, now we've got two kids and we live in Idaho. So
yeah,
that's a big difference from California, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's turning into like mini California, I think.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people are coming in from California, which is great. Yeah. So, so fun story, he was in the dance world too. So to have somebody, in partnership on this journey with me that understands where we've been, where we want to go, and understands that language. I mean, you just can't beat that.
That's pretty awesome. Sure. I know we're going to have to pick your brain a little bit later on the Shark Tank. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah.
Myself and Cole and Stacy have been talking about going on there and possibly trying to sell Kevin to those guys. So,
I don't know. You might have a hard time with Mr. Wonderful, Kevin.
I don't know. I'm a pretty good talker.
I think we can get a pretty penny for him. I mean, the guy will sell 22 hours a day. So whoever buys him is going to get a great deal. So
ABC, it's always be closing, right? Yeah. Like you have to do it.
I like that. I've never heard that actually. Kevin is the epitome of ABC.
It's my middle name.
Yeah. Kevin. Oh, well, speaking of selling, Kevin, why don't you tell us about MotUS?
Well, awesome. Well, MotUS is a community of gym owners working together to help each other grow. As a member of MotUS, you get access to our Gym Owners Vault, which includes templates for literally every aspect of business that we can come up with. We continue to add new resources constantly. We also have a private Facebook page that everyone can be on and the opportunity to join our monthly webinars. We have awesome speakers. They're as great as Cole and Stacy and our friend Bri. Not as good as some other partners. Anyway, you also receive amazing discounts from our affiliate members. Literally, we have competitions like the Cheer Expo, Choice Events, All Out Brands, the Spirit Network, also other affiliates like Infinity, Vault Media, Bookshop Fundraising, and Cheer Sounds is phenomenal. You can join the movement at www.joinmotus.com. That's www.joinmotus.com. I know Casey's surprised that I could spell it, but I can't.
I was very shocked there.
I have to say, I'm jumping in to say I absolutely love this group. So MotUS is awesome for anybody out there that is thinking about it. It is absolutely worth it. It's such a great community of when you're in it, and you need to know that other people are in it with you and going through the same things, and just having those resources at your fingertips. You guys make it so easy. It's amazing.
Thank you, Bri. And
thank you very much.
I wanted to chime in and say I really appreciate your story, and that's one thing as we've continue to talk to more and more business owners is everyone kind of has the same story. At some point, they really took a risk and really took that leap of faith and kind of followed their heart, and I think that's true for every successful business owner.
It is, and I think, like, to your point, you have that moment, but it's really important to know, like, before doing this, I mean, I knew I wanted to be in business for myself, and I had other opportunities come up through my career to own studios or, be in charge of my own destiny in that way. And something in my gut always pulled me back and said, it's not right. Something doesn't feel right. No. And I would almost say I was a little bit more conservative. So all that to say, when you're faced with that big leap off the mountain, yes, it happens in every scenario, but something in you will scream at you going, you're going to regret it if you don't find out how this turns out. Right. And that's what happened with Apolla. My best friend actually pitched me on the beach. We were on a family vacation, and I was at this crossroads in my career. It's just had my first kid. I was gone all the time. People were raising my children. I was like, this sucks. I don't know if I want to do this. And I loved what I did. I mean, I was passionate about dance. I mean, I got to go to work and do what I loved every single day. And something was gnawing at me that I was not satisfied. I wasn't right. And when she pitched me, it was the scariest time in the world. We both had 1-year-olds. We were kind of not sorted out on our finances. Like, there was so many reasons to go no. Right. And something in me, I looked at my husband, I said, we've got to jump. Like, this is it. And it was screaming at me, this is the time. And so I think for all the budding entrepreneurs out there, you don't have to be, a crazy person who takes all the risks in your life to do something like this, but it has to be the right opportunity for you to want to sacrifice so much. And that's really what it is. You have to be willing to sacrifice a lot of things to get to the end goal. And 10 years later, we still see that end goal really clearly. We're not even close, right? We still see it, and it fuels us to put in the work and put in the grind to get to that end goal.
So outside of dance and cheer, what other sports are you in right now?
It's dance, cheer, and marching arts primarily right now. And that's all. And we're starting to dabble in gymnastics. But I would say the other segment of that is really we're for anyone with feet. So 75% of Americans are in foot pain that causes them to actually not participate in certain things in life. And so the 75% of people that are in foot pain, people that have chronic issues like diabetes, neuropathy, plantar fasciitis, severs, old ankle injuries, fallen arches, high arches, pregnancy, travel, like anybody with any of those things, basically with feet, we can help. So it's interesting being a small business and being able to literally help most of the population. How do we tackle all those markets and speak to all of those people at once? And that continues to be the biggest challenge of refining our message in a way that really speaks to these people. And so they understand we are reading every email you send. We care. This is not just a money grab for us. This is, we guarantee these products. We will literally give you your money back if they don't work for you, but just give us a try so we can help. Right. Like, that's the constant challenge right now.
So Bri, you were talking about, educating people on what you do. Yeah. And I think it's, some of the challenges that we find in the gym business is educating the younger people, which in turn means you've got to educate their parents, because the reality is, I'm in my 50s and everything hurts. So I need equipment, and I want equipment for everything that I do. When you are 12 or 16 for that matter, nothing's hurting yet,
Absolutely.
So educating young people and their parents on equipment, because you think about that, every other sport, hey, I'm going to take my equipment bag with me. I'm going to take my helmet. I'm going to take these different things.
Yes.
And the arts, that's not always true. And I found it really interesting what you were talking about earlier. Some of what we're wearing and doing hasn't changed in 50 plus years.
Like who said a ballet shoe has to be that, right? Like who made that rule? Like there's no governing body. There's no, queen or king of dance land. Like who said it?
I saw a show over the ballet shoes, and literally the same company, and I'm sure they do a great job. The same company has been making them for 50 years and they're made the same way. Yeah. And these dancers are literally getting them, cutting them apart to try to fit their feet and re-sewing them. And I'm like, that's just crazy because it hasn't changed.
Their feet are blistering and bloody, and their toenails are falling out. And I mean, I want to know, ballet is beautiful, but I want to know who decided that women should dance up on the top of their toes.
Well, we want to know that too. But no, I mean, that really is the crux of the problem. And it's funny that you say you do, it's the same, insert any industry, right? Is there's this element of tradition that goes along with things. And there's this natural tendency for humans to go, well, I went through that, so they need to go through that. And it's like almost like earn your badge of honor, right? There's a lot of adults that feel that way, that have that more traditionalist, starting with coaches and directors and choreographers. Like there's an old school mentality that exists, that it creates this balance that we have to kind of find as a community. And when you say educate the parents, I'll tell you, it happens so much at Foxwoods. Even last weekend, like the parent would come up and they would go through the whole thing with us and go, you would see them get it. They were like, oh my gosh, like I'm paying hundreds of dollars for KT tape. I've got a million bulky braces at home that she hates wearing or he hates wearing. These would be amazing. I'm going to get my kid to come over. And then they would bring the kid over and the kid would go, I don't want to wear those, or I can't wear those, or no, I don't want to try those on right now because I'm like, they're at competition with their friends, and I get it, but it almost takes somebody. And that's why we talk to the parents and why we talk to the coaches, because it takes those people that are in charge, that have the power to go, no, you have to wear this because it's better for you. And I think sometimes right now we get caught up in asking the kids what they want, but kids don't, I don't think kids should be forced. They're human beings, but at the same time, they don't know what's waiting for them 20 years down the line yet. They don't.
That's such a challenge because, I mean, fashion can dictate that. Whatever is in style, like, I mean, I'll notice in our gym, the kids don't wear matching socks. I think it's a thing that all the socks go in a drawer and, hey, I grabbed a pink one and a blue one. Yeah. But that's kind of fashionable for them. That's what they're, they're not thinking about, the benefit,
the long-term effects,
and that, and
I mean,
neither
look,
was I when I was 16.
I'll be honest, at the USASF, when Casey brought me over there, I'm like, I do not feel like doing this right now.
Totally.
Casey, what are you getting me into?
People are like, I'm not taking off my shoes. What do you mean? We're like, we always say, we've seen dancers' feet. Nothing can be worse. So we've seen it all. Just take off your shoe, right? I think we did that with you. But yeah, there is definitely that element of like, they don't know what's better for them at this age. And we do recognize, which is why you're going to see us doing what we're doing with the teams that are wearing these, Stingrays being one of them, is, it matters who's wearing them. They want to know who else is wearing these, and unfortunately that influences people's decisions as well. And we're not stupid to that. We get it. And so we've spent, our first time at cheer it hasn't even been a year since we got into this market. And I've never been so sure that we are where we're supposed to be. But, just 8 months, 10 months ago now, whatever it was, we got that validation, and we have spent this time really getting to know the leaders in the space, the people that are setting the trends and setting the tones, that care about injury risk management. That's a big one. They have to care, right, for us to work with them. But for them to be on the top of their game, recognizing that these are athletes and they need to treat their body like athletes, we have been spending time accumulating those partnerships so we can say, hey, Stingrays are wearing us, Empire Athletics, East Celebrity Elite, NFL Raiderettes, Las Vegas Raiderettes, the Arizona Cardinals, like all of those things carry weight. And should they? Probably not. It shouldn't matter, right? But it does. And that's the reality of where we're at. And so that's what we've been doing, is really kind of talking to the leaders in the spaces and going, do you guys like these? Why? What is it doing for you? Getting that feedback, speaking that language, and getting pictures and video to back it up. And people are it builds a trust with the community, I think.
It was interesting because we do have several of our teams in the gym wearing them, and that's kind of what led me to bring that up about the younger athletes. And you say it, and heck, I don't know that we've done a good job as coaches or gym owners of sharing that with the young athletes, because one thing I did notice as our teams got them, the team that embraced them the most, the fastest, was Electric, which was our team of older athletes. You know, these are some folks
because they're feeling it.
I was going to say, because they feel it.
Because they're injured. Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. And they do have, not that a younger athlete can't think for themselves. They certainly can, but they don't think on the same level as a 28-year-old who has tumbled a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the challenge right now, is how do we get that to trickle down, right? So we always have gone with a top-down approach. We start at the top of the decision makers, the people who authorize these things, who set the dress codes, and we hope that it trickles down. It takes more time that way, because sometimes it's easier to just go right to the parents, but it takes more time, but we're sure that they're getting the right education, right? And so it does take a little bit of time, and that's what we want to see now is, okay, we've kind of infiltrated this top tier. Now we need to see the messaging being passed down. And, we're starting to capture the attention of other companies in the space who are like, well, where is this coming from? So that creates another level of challenge, but we're very confident. We stay in our lane. We know what we're good at. We know what we do better than everybody else. And it's going to allow us to continue to move forward, I think, in the space, especially.
Well, I think it's great. And I think I can see some of those challenges of, a shoe company. What do you mean we don't offer the support? To me, this is just an add-on, it's
a tool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing of, I go to the gym to work out and I take an equipment bag with me that has several different things, or I go to football practice and I take, like you said, there's all the things, but hey, what works and what truly can impact an athlete and keep them injury free, because when an athlete, that's better for all of us. Yeah. There's the whole thing. We want to protect the athletes for sure. That is the number one most important thing. But then from the competitive side, they can't help you compete if they're injured. So
that's right. Keeping feet on the mat. And that's what we've talked to coaches about, is like, look, every year you have to respace, you have to reblock, you have to, put alternates in, because you're losing kids to injury. What if we didn't have to do that? What if we can keep feet on the mat, keep everybody's life easier, keep their life easier, certainly, that they're pain-free and injury-free. But you'll hear us as the owners of the company saying all the time, this is not a be-all, end-all solution. Our socks are not going to stop you from getting injured. However, to your point, they are an absolutely essential tool to injury risk management, along with rest, along with ice, along with, making sure that we're not pushing our body past the number of hours that we're supposed to be doing that, right? So this is another layer. And it's interesting, like, people will go spend, money on coffee, or, if you get 6 coffees in a month, like, that's a pair of socks, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is something that's going to last much longer than a cup of coffee. It's going to replace all the things that you're spending money on, all the socks that you're buying, all the braces, all the KT tape that when it's not even done right 90% of the time. So it's like rendered useless when people use KT tape unless it's done properly. So like all of those things can go bye-bye, and just put on the socks and you're doing something positive for your journey, right? So that's what we're hoping gets through.
There's value there. And then one of my favorite sayings, buy nice, not twice. so spend the money on
it.
And to your point, these socks are lasting. I think you said you guys guarantee them for 6 months,
6 to 9 months, depending on how much, like if they're using one pair every day for, every day, and they're only using one pair, probably closer to 6 months. And that's just when the compression will wear out. But the socks themselves, our testers from 2014, that's over 10 years ago now, still have their first pairs that they wear. There are no holes in them. They still look pretty pretty new, pretty fresh out the box. They don't fade, nothing like that, but they wear them. They're like, oh, they feel so good. They're molded to my feet. They're like very well-loved socks, right? We're like, they don't work. Like the compression, like the whole point of them is the compression, and they do not work. And they're like, no, they still feel really good. And we're like, here, put on a new pair, and they'll put on a new one and go, oh.
That's the same thing.
Feel the compression again. They're like, forgot,
You see that with cheerleading shoes, and I'm sure you've seen this as you have pulled shoes off of kids and put socks on them when you guys are selling. But goodness gracious, it's a badge of honor that the entire bottom of their shoe is worn out.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a badge of honor that they've had them for 7 years.
So, Bri, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to listen to any of our fabulous podcasts, but we have some funny traditions. Kevin and Casey they're our resident goofballs, if you will. And they share a dad joke with us. So I feel like it's
I love dad jokes.
Dad joke time. So Kevin's got a dad joke for us.
Well, this is my daughter's favorite time, Sky and Ava. If they might have fallen asleep about footwear, they might enjoy this part. So why do seagulls fly over the sea?
Why?
Because if they flew over the bay, they'd be bagels.
That is funny.
Makes me hungry.
The drum effect.
Bagels,
I love it. That's a good one.
Thank you. So
that's a good one.
I did a drum beat, but unfortunately I was on mute.
So Bri, tell me about, so you talked about your parents owning a produce store. So my parents owned a sheet metal fabrication shop. And as a kid, I feel like Cole's mom owned a gym. So he's talked about being in the gym all the time. You were in the produce store all the time. I was in the sheet metal fabrication shop all the time. I used to do, like, back in the day, keyboards would be made with little keycaps. Like, so all the little pieces that are part of your keyboard, they're individual separate pieces. Yeah. And you would engrave the letters into the piece. That's how they used to be made 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And then you'd have to put like this crayon of ink in them, clean them off. Anyway, the point is that's where I started, and I worked my way up to the rivet machine, where I would get to put metal into a machine and they would like press this rivet down into it. Then I got to be in the shipping department. I thought I was a cool kid. And by the time I got like into my older teen, like 15, 16, I was like, okay, Dad, like I'm going to have to keep doing this whole like sheet metal fabrication shop thing. Like, I don't want to be in the dirty shop anymore because it's dirty out there. I'm like, I want to be in the office. So I started doing cost analysis and like dissecting the amount of time it would take to do a job, and versus this person versus this person, or this job versus this job. And I would give my dad all this data. And anyway, so I'm sure you have similar experiences.
Very
in the
similar.
Produce. Yeah. So I feel like those things, as much as when I was a kid and I would kind of complain about it and who wants to go to the dirty shop and do all the things. But now as an adult, like it taught me so much grit and so much about business and so much about like, sometimes you have to plunge the toilet and sometimes you have to, my dad, he would be doing his thing, but when they needed parts to get out, like he'd be in the shop getting the parts out because they needed an extra pair of hands. So tell me about your experience in the produce world.
Yeah, it's so similar. Like we would at 7 years old, so they would have their warehouse, right? They were a distributor to restaurants and stadiums and casinos and all those things. But on the weekends, there would be an open market where they would set up pallets and all the produce would go on top, and it would just be like a market. Like you would go on the weekends and get your produce, fresh produce, and we would go, and I have to be down there at like 5 a.m. and picking up the heavy boxes, carrying them, setting up the table, refilling the produce, selling to people, going up to, which I think is an art that is lost for kids today. I sound so old when I say that, but I'm trying to figure out how to impart these skills on my own children, who are 8 and 11. But you have to learn to look somebody in the eye of that speaks maybe a different language than you, or, has a different culture. Some people, there's cultures that, don't take kindly to being sold things from women. And so, I had to learn at a very young age how to look somebody in the eye and not be intimidated and be able to have a conversation and what can I do for you? And here you go. And saying thank you when you don't really want to say thank you, and all the things that kind of build you up for entrepreneurship. But and saw the stress, of my parents, but we would put in, 12-hour days at that market. And my uncle, who owned the business with my dad, I always tell this story. I'd be like, when's lunch? And I would get in trouble for asking when lunch was. And if I sat down, get up. There's no sitting. You don't sit. And so you learn a discipline that you really can't get anywhere else. And it teaches you to have pride in your work, no matter what you're doing. And I think that's the biggest thing that's missing now with young people as they're growing up is having that pride. It doesn't matter if you're flipping pizzas, you're waiting tables, you're hostessing, you're doing, all these different jobs that are not maybe so glamorous, but there's a lack of pride in, I'm going to do this job better than anybody else. And I'm going to treat this like it's my business. And every job I've had since then, I've treated and I've had a lot, I've treated it like it was mine. And I think that's really what cuts an entrepreneur. And when you say, what is somebody made of, and what are the characteristics of an entrepreneur, it's when you can do any job, right? And you can do anything with a pride and a fierceness and just having pride in what you're putting out in the world. I think that is definitely one of those skills that,
yeah, that's a great point. I have that same life lesson that I got from one of my college professors, and it's just stuck with me throughout the years. He said that if you get the opportunity to sweep the floor, sweep it better than it's ever been swept before. And he would say it, I felt like at least once a week. And it's just something that stuck in my head. That
I love, Cole, what you just said. I love what you just said right there too. If you get the opportunity to sweep the floor, because I think that so many people, it's like, I have to sweep the floor. But it is an opportunity. Every action, every thing is an opportunity, and it's all in your mentality and how you go about it. And I've swept the floor.
Yeah, me too.
And you don't, I don't want to say that I appreciated, I don't want to say like I fully appreciated those opportunities when I had them. I think as I got older, I definitely, but I remember being in my teen years just looking at my parents differently with an immense amount of pride. My dad would come to all of our stuff, any performance I had or any cheerleading, a game that I was cheerleading in, like he actually gave a pep talk to our cheerleading team one year. It was really weird. And he still talks about it. It was like a highlight of his life, but he would show up in his clothes, like dirty from work. And he would be there. And that was the thing. Like it took all of our family to sacrifice and commit to that business. And it was such a part of our life. And people from the outside looking in would go, oh, they're rich, they're this, they're that. And we didn't live, a great, very middle-class lifestyle, but they didn't see the other side of that coin. They didn't see the hours and the sacrifice and they saw one little sliver of, success happening years later down the road, but they didn't see all the hours and the grit that it took to get to that point. And so you get very protective and almost defensive over, when people say those types of things, because they have no idea what you've given up while they were, going out on the weekends and drinking beer and this, that, and the other, and having social hours and all of those, which is wonderful. I'm not going to knock that. But there is an element of, no, I can't do this. I have to go into work, or no, I can't do this. I have to work on my business, or I don't have a customer service employee today, so I'm going to sit down and pound out emails because I don't have anybody to do it. So it's all of those things that people don't see. I think there's that diagram. Sarah Blakely shared it a while ago where it's like, the the business of entrepreneurship or owning your own business. And, you know, the iceberg in like the water is covering like 90% of what's below the water. You can't see, you just see the beautiful iceberg at the top. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Well, I had a couple thoughts on, my parents used to say the best ability is availability, and you got to show up and you got to be there. You know, if you want to put in the work. I know we've all worked different hours at different young ages.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Bri, when you talk about working as a child, I know Casey and Stacy and Cole and I all have worked younger, and I'm almost a tiny bit embarrassed because my kids have not worked near as hard as I did. I mean,
same.
I think, I don't know if Cole or Stacy or Casey know this story. My sales career started at 9 years old. I had a paper route for 9 years, and it seems like no big deal. But I used to go door to door to try to get people, because the more papers I could sell on a daily basis, the more money I would make. So literally at 9 years old, I'm going door to door trying to help people to buy the daily paper every morning that I sent out at 6 a.m. And then the third thing I learned from this conversation is every time we get together, Casey, stop asking what time we go to lunch, because that's obviously annoying. It doesn't matter when that is. So,
I mean, and some would go, that's abusive, you know, like some would say that now that is abusive, but that's how it was not that they didn't want me to eat or that they didn't want me to rest or sit down. It was making sure I had the stuff, that we all had the stuff that it takes to, you know, be able to do anything and all things and be available, like you said. But yeah, I will say that is a conversation that my husband and I are having with our own kids now, because my son's 11 and he's old enough, you know, and my Casey and I have started talking about, you know, how we can get our kids involved. We don't work together. We don't have a warehouse. We don't have something that the kids can actively go to work and do. But how do we make them part of this business so that they understand the sacrifice of their parents and what is happening? I think that is just truly so important to create well-rounded, grateful human beings, and definitely something I'm striving to do with my own children, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Casey, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, it's the best moments of my
Kevin,
day.
I think Kevin muted you.
Wait, do I have that power? I didn't know I could do that.
You are more powerful than you thought.
Did you mute me, Kevin? Yeah, I was about to say something nice about you. So, yeah, that is the thing with our kids. You know, we're trying to teach them, but who we put them around to, you know, Kevin actually said something. My middle son, he's 19. He's been working a couple of events with us, and he sees us working and doing the manual labor, and he's seen Kevin vacuuming the floor. And Kevin said something to him one day, and it was so important to me. And I don't even know that my son picked up on it, but I wanted to double down on what he said, because it kind of goes back to what Cole was talking about a second ago. Kevin's out there vacuuming the floor. I don't know. My son said, you know, can we do this tomorrow or whatever? Or why do you, no, I know what it was. He was like, Kevin, why do you like to do this? He's like, you know, it's just such a blessing. I get out here and I can think about my job. I can pray. I can just have this time with God, but I can really appreciate that I have the honor to do this, to be able to run a competition and to affect kids. And, you know, it's just a privilege. It's a privilege that I can come out here and vacuum this floor, that, you know, my body is physically capable of it, that we own this business, that we can do it here. And like I said, I don't know if he was paying a lick of attention right then, but I knew that what he said was important, you know, and I wanted to, like, that's a conversation that we had later on in our hotel room, because the reality is, you know, we talk about this, but, you know, you don't have to back up that long ago, you know, a couple 100 years ago. And like, if you didn't work, you didn't eat. If you didn't farm, you didn't have food. If you didn't hunt, you didn't have food. And now we live in a world where one person can feed thousands. So it is more challenging of teaching the young people, because at one point in time, it wasn't a choice, you know, and now, unfortunately, sometimes kids and adults have the choice to not work or add to society. And thank God they don't starve to death or go without shelter. But then that's also a challenge of making sure that our young folks, see our work ethic.
Right.
So
I also think it's an appreciation for people that is lost now because of social media and all the gadgets and all the things that they have access to. Like, that's something that I am always talking about when my kids have an interaction with an adult, and I've told them this since they were like 4, I'm not even kidding. Like, because I've had kids as a director come into my office and literally burst into tears, not even be able to look me in the eye just at the thought of having a conversation. And I'm not a scary person. I'm pretty easy to talk to. And just having a conversation one-on-one with a teenager of where they can't even look at me or have a conversation where they're looking me in the eye is scary to me. Like, I'm like, you're old enough to know better. So it's a firm handshake and looking in the eye and saying hello when somebody says hi to you, looking them in the eye and taking a second and doing that. It's all those little things. And I don't care if you have an athlete, if we're talking about athletes and coaches, or if we're talking about, kids and their parents, it's all the same. Those things are so important to building relationships and understanding humans and building a human connection, which is so important in business, right?
So important. I don't teach much at Stingrays anymore. I do very little coaching, but I do walk around and I teach a firm handshake and I teach eye-to-eye contact. And that is one thing that,
and he does go up, he plays I'm a competitive soccer mom. And so he plays competitive soccer, and all of the same principles apply. I don't care if you're in dance, cheer, marching arts, soccer, I don't care what it is. It all applies. And so I have this other perspective as a parent, because I have coached and I have been in the director's seat and I have set the rules for the team and done all of those things. But, he will, to this day now at 11 years old, I used to force him to go do it, is to go up and give a handshake and say, thank you for practice. Thank you after the game. What can I do better? And now he's doing it on his own. So that's a win, but it took years of us pushing them to do that for it to resonate. And that's, I think, what I want people to take away is like, one time, even if we're talking about socks and injury prevention, or if we're talking about just communication skills, like one time isn't going to cut it. It has to be a constant practice for them for it to become part of them and part of their life. So you have to make them do it until they learn to do it on their own. Because if we're not teaching them these things, who is? Like, and that's right. The biggest thing I'm seeing now is there's this thing with parent, like, my kid doesn't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, I get it to a certain point, but it's like, at what point are we're overriding their decisions because we know what's better for them?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm stuck right now.
Yeah, we have to teach them from experience. Yeah. Anyway, Bri, such great conversation today. I feel like we could probably talk for another 3 or 4 hours. But we all have jobs. So anyway, thank you so much for sharing your story today. I am going to share a little bit about, we talked about dance. So I want to share with you guys, give your dancers the best competition experience when they attend a Stage 8 Dance Brands event. Stage 8 Dance Brands is by dancers for dancers. Also, don't miss out on your chance to attend Stage 8 Dance Nationals. It's an awesome way to end your season. For more information, go to stage8dancebrands.com. That's stage8dancebrands.com. STAGE, the number 8, DANCEBRANDS.com. Stage8dancebrands.com.
So now we know that both Kevin and Casey can spell. That's amazing. Good job, boys. Good job. Good job. And Stage 8 is a partner of Apolla, right?
They are. We love them. They're fantastic. It's just so many good connections through MotUS, I have to say. It's been wonderful.
Awesome.
So, Bri, I'm like obsessed with Simon Sinek, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has amazing, check out Simon Sinek. That's your homework after the podcast. Okay. He is an incredible human that just talks a lot about leadership and business and just how to be a good leader in business and a good human being overall in general. And so I'm obsessed, and I'm convinced that we're going to get Simon on our podcast someday. That's like my ultimate dream.
Manifest it, Stacey.
Right? Yeah. I'm manifesting it. I'm putting it out into the universe. And so we do a Simon Sinek quote every podcast. So the quote today is, normal is what the majority does, which is why different is so much more interesting. And so I chose that because I feel like there are a lot of, products on the market, but yours is very different. So what are your quick thoughts on that quote?
I love that quote. It takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of intention to be different, right? Like it's easy to be like everybody else. And so whether that's in business or when you're going to cheer practice every day or just being a kid growing up in this crazy world that we live in, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I love that quote. Thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciated our time with you today, and we appreciated your story.
Really
and
awesome.
it was awesome. And thank you for being a great partner with MotUS. And I personally love your socks. I actually have. I don't want to falsely advertise because I don't know that it's 100% the socks, but I have been wearing them more frequently. And for the first time in the last couple of weeks, I'm actually able to feel like parts of my foot, not the whole foot, but like parts of my foot when I put it's kind of the weirdest thing. When I put it down on the ground, I'm like, oh, I can feel this little tiny square inch of the ball of my foot. Like I feel that now all of a sudden. So anyway, I can try. I'm sure it's maybe a multitude of things, but I personally feel like the socks are part of that. So be sure to check out Apolla Socks. Bri, how can listeners sign up to be an affiliate for Apolla Socks if they would like to be?
Yeah, everything. Our website is the best place to go for all things. We have so much information and education on there about our products, our brand, how to get involved with our community. So if you go to apollaperformance.com, that's APOLLAPERFORMANCE.com. And now I can spell too.
There you go.
Go to the website and just search for our affiliate program. You can sign up there. It's fantastic. And if you have any issues, just message us at info@apollaperformance.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And hey, go ahead, Kevin.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is Apollo from the Greek god? Is that?
Yes, it is. So we feminized it because Apollo is the god of science and arts and the muses. And we took it and put an A on it because we're an all-female-owned company.
Okay.
That's
good stuff.
But you're the first one to ever know that before
connect that together. Hey, girl boss power. I love it. You go, girl. You go, girl. If you join MotUS, you can receive member exclusive discounts with Apolla Socks, which is pretty awesome. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and X at Join MotUS, and follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you like what we're doing and want to hear more, let us know. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to the MotUS Edge. We hope you had a blast. Join us next week for more on business, leadership, and motivation. Subscribe and follow the show where you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our newsletter at joinmotus.com. The MotUS Edge podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.